I stood in the basement of the $80,000 wedding venue I had paid for in full, staring at a folding table with my name card sitting alone in a corner next to the water heater and a stack of plastic chairs. Above me, I could hear the rehearsal dinner in full swing. Crystal glasses clinking. Laughter echoing through expensive hardwood floors. My sister Victoria's voice rising above the rest, bright and careless, thanking everyone for coming to celebrate the most important day of her life. My hands shook as I picked up the place card. Claire Donovan. Written in the same elegant calligraphy as every other guest's name. Except theirs were upstairs at tables draped in ivory linens under chandeliers that cost more per month to rent than most people's car payments. Mine was down here in the basement, where the staff kept extra supplies and the air smelled like cleaning solution and concrete. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I had wondered why the seating chart my mother showed me last week didn't include my name. She'd waved off my question with her usual dismissive gesture. We're still finalizing details, Claire. Don't worry about it. You know how these things are. Now I knew exactly how these things were. I walked slowly up the basement stairs, my heels clicking against the concrete steps. The door at the top opened into the kitchen where catering staff moved efficiently between stations. None of them looked at me. They'd probably been told I was supposed to be down there. Maybe they'd even been told why. I could imagine my mother's explanation. She's a bit difficult. Doesn't really fit with the wedding party. Best to keep her separate. I pushed through the kitchen doors into the main reception hall. The space was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. Exposed wooden beams across vaulted ceilings. Tables arranged perfectly with centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus. String lights wrapped around every architectural detail, creating the kind of magical glow that showed up beautifully in photographs. I had chosen this venue. Spent 3 months visiting every event space in Portland before finding Riverside Estate and Gardens. Negotiated the contract. Put down the deposit. Paid the balance in full 6 weeks ago because Victoria said it would be one less thing to worry about, and wouldn't it be amazing to have it completely handled? My parents sat at the head table with Victoria and Brandon. My mother wore a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My father had his arm around Victoria's shoulders, beaming with pride. Brandon's parents sat to their left, looking equally delighted. The maid of honor Kristen was on Victoria's other side, already halfway through a glass of wine, laughing at something my sister had just said. There were 8 tables total. 64 guests at the rehearsal dinner. Family members I'd known my entire life. Brandon's relatives who'd flown in from across the country. Close friends of the couple. Everyone who mattered. And me, apparently, in the basement. I stood there for a long moment, invisible in the doorway. Watching them celebrate. Watching my mother lean over to adjust Victoria's necklace. Watching my father stand to give a toast about his beautiful daughter and how proud he was of the woman she'd become. Watching every single person raise their glass and drink to Victoria's happiness. Nobody noticed I wasn't there. Not one person looked around and wondered where Claire was. Not even Nina, my best friend since college, who was seated at table 4 with other college friends of Victoria's. She was laughing at someone's story, completely unaware that I was standing in a doorway watching a room full of people who had decided I didn't belong with them. I pulled my phone from my purse and opened the camera. Took a photo of the reception hall. Another of the head table. A third of my empty seat in the basement. Then I turned and walked back through the kitchen, down the stairs, and out the service exit into the parking lot. My hands were steady now as I sat in my car. No tears. No breakdown. Just a cold, clear certainty settling over me like ice water. I opened my email and found the contract from Riverside Estate and Gardens. Scrolled to the cancellation policy section I'd read so carefully when I first signed. Cancellations made more than 30 days in advance receive a 50% refund of all payments. Cancellations made between 14 and 30 days receive a 25% refund. Cancellations made less than 14 days before the event received no refund and client remains responsible for the full contracted amount. I checked the calendar. The wedding was in 16 days. I could cancel right now and get $20,000 back. Or I could wait 2 more days and get nothing back but something far more valuable. The satisfaction of watching everything they'd planned collapse at the last possible moment when it was too late to find another venue. Too late to notify guests of a location change, too late to do anything except face the consequences of treating me like I didn't matter. I started the car and drove home to my loft in the Pearl District. Didn't answer when my mother called twice. Didn't respond to Victoria's text asking where I was. Just poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony looking out at the city lights, thinking about every moment that had led me here. The pattern had started long before tonight. I'd spent 32 years learning that in the Donovan family, there was Victoria and then there was everyone else. But I'd always told myself it wasn't that bad. That parents couldn't help having favorites. That I was independent enough not to need the same level of attention and support. I'd been lying to myself for 3 decades. Victoria was 3 years younger than me, born when I was old enough to remember the shift in our household. Before her arrival, I'd been the center of my parents' world. After, I became the older sister. The responsible one. The one who understood that babies need more attention. I accepted this with the earnest eagerness of a child who wanted to be helpful and good. The dynamic never changed as we grew older. It just evolved into new forms. When I was 16, I saved money from my part-time job at the library for 6 months to buy a used car. A 12-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and a tape deck that ate every cassette I tried to play. I was proud of it. It represented independence and hard work and the satisfaction of achieving something on my own. When Victoria turned 16, my parents surprised her with a brand new Volkswagen Jetta. Pearl white with leather seats and a premium sound system. They presented it to her in the driveway with a bow on top while I watched from the porch. My father made a speech about his baby girl growing up and deserving the best. My mother cried happy tears and took approximately 400 photographs. I stood there holding my library bag, watching Victoria scream and jump up and down, and told myself it didn't matter. She was younger. Times were better financially for our parents now. It didn't mean anything. But it did mean something. It meant that my hard work earned me a dented Honda that broke down once a month, while her existence earned her a brand new car she hadn't worked a single hour to afford. College followed the same script. I earned a partial scholarship to the University of Oregon and worked 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore to cover the rest. I graduated with $16,000 in student loan debt that took me 5 years to pay off. I was proud of my degree. Proud that I'd earned it myself without asking for help. Victoria decided college wasn't for her after 1 semester. She'd enrolled at Portland State, lasted exactly 14 weeks, and came home saying she needed time to figure out what she really wanted to do with her life. My parents nodded sympathetically and said, of course, there's no rush, finding your passion is more important than any degree. They continued paying her phone bill, her car insurance, her rent at a studio apartment in Northwest Portland where she worked part-time at a boutique and spent most of her energy on Instagram cultivating an influencer presence that never quite took off. She was figuring herself out. She needed support during this journey of self-discovery. I had needed support too. I'd needed help with textbooks I couldn't afford and shifts I couldn't cover when I got the flu during finals week and someone to tell me they were proud that I was working so hard. But I was the capable one. The strong one. The one who didn't need help because I'd proven I could handle things on my own. The job search after graduation was brutal. 6 months of applications and interviews and rejections before I finally landed an entry-level position at a marketing firm downtown. The salary was barely enough to cover rent in a shared apartment in Southeast Portland, but it was a start. I showed up early every day. Stayed late. Volunteered for projects nobody else wanted. Slowly built a reputation as someone reliable and creative and willing to work harder than anyone else in the room. 5 years later, I'd worked my way up to senior marketing coordinator with a salary that let me afford my own place. A loft in the Pearl District with exposed brick walls and big windows and a rent that took 40% of my income but felt worth it for the pride of living independently in a space that was entirely mine. Victoria spent those same 5 years bouncing between jobs and apartments and relationships. She tried being a yoga instructor for 8 months. Then a personal stylist for 6 months. Then a social media manager for a local restaurant that went out of business after 4 months. Each time something didn't work out, my parents were there with reassurance and financial support and the unwavering belief that she just hadn't found her true calling yet. When she moved back home for the 3rd time at age 26, my mother redecorated the guest room to make it more comfortable for her. Called it Victoria's suite like it was a hotel room rather than a return to childhood dependence. My father paid off her credit card debt without question or consequences. $15,000 in charges for clothes and dinners and trips she couldn't afford. Gone with a check and a lecture about being more careful that lasted maybe 3 minutes. I'd asked to borrow $3,000 once when I was 28. My apartment had flooded due to a burst pipe and my renter's insurance didn't cover the full cost of replacing my damaged furniture and belongings. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I needed help bridging the gap while waiting for the landlord's insurance claim to process. My father's response was immediate and firm. "Claire, you're 30 years old. You need to build an emergency fund instead of relying on us to bail you out. This is a learning opportunity about financial responsibility." I paid for everything on a credit card and spent the next year paying it off with interest. Victoria's $15,000 shopping spree was erased without a lecture about emergency funds or financial responsibility or learning opportunities. Because she was still figuring things out and she needed support, and anyway she felt terrible about the debt, so wasn't that punishment enough? The career that finally stuck for Victoria was event planning. She got a job with a small company that handled corporate parties and nonprofit fundraisers. She was good at it. Charming and organized and creative in ways that translated well to the work. I was genuinely happy for her. Genuinely proud that she'd found something she enjoyed and seemed to be building toward an actual future. Then she met Brandon Hayes at a charity auction she was coordinating. He worked in commercial real estate development. Came from money. Wore expensive suits and had the kind of easy confidence that came from never having to worry about whether you could afford to go out to dinner or buy new shoes. He was handsome and successful and clearly smitten with my sister from their first conversation. They dated for 8 months before he proposed with a ring that cost more than my car. Victoria called me crying happy tears, talking so fast I could barely understand her. She was engaged. They were getting married. She wanted me to be part of it. Would I help her plan? Would I be there for her? Would I share this incredible moment? Of course I said yes. She was my sister. Whatever complicated feelings I had about our family dynamics, I loved her. I wanted her to be happy. I wanted to believe that this time things might be different. That maybe her happiness didn't have to come at the cost of my invisibility. The engagement period was a whirlwind. Victoria threw herself into wedding planning with the intensity of someone who'd been dreaming of this moment her entire life. My mother joined her for dress shopping and cake tasting and florist consultations. They created a shared Pinterest board with thousands of pins. They FaceTimed me occasionally to show me options and ask my opinion, which I gave earnestly before they went with whatever they'd already decided. I wasn't asked to be maid of honor. That position went to Kristen Walsh, Victoria's friend from the event planning company. I understood. They worked together. They were close. It made sense. I wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid either. Victoria had 5 bridesmaids, all carefully chosen friends who fit the aesthetic she wanted for her wedding photos. I would have looked out of place, she explained gently. I was taller than the other girls and the dresses wouldn't look right on me, and anyway didn't I want to just enjoy the wedding without responsibilities? I told myself it didn't hurt. Told myself I preferred being a regular guest anyway. Less pressure. Less obligation. I could just show up and celebrate without worrying about matching dresses and coordinated photos. The venue search began in February. Victoria wanted something elegant and unique. Somewhere that didn't feel like every other wedding venue in Portland. She toured dozens of options with my mother and Kristen. Hotels and gardens and historic buildings and wineries. Nothing felt quite right. I suggested Riverside Estate and Gardens after seeing a photo essay about it in a local magazine. It was newer, having opened just 2 years earlier after extensive renovations to a historic property. The grounds were stunning. The interior was sophisticated without being stuffy. The event coordinator had experience with high-end weddings and a reputation for making everything run flawlessly. Victoria fell in love with it immediately. The moment she walked through the door, she knew. This was the place. This was where she'd marry Brandon. It was perfect in every way except one. The cost. An $80,000 venue fee seemed impossible. Brandon's parents had offered to pay for the rehearsal dinner and the honeymoon. Victoria's dress had already cost $12,000, paid for by my parents. The rest of the wedding budget was stretched thin between catering and photography and flowers and all the other details that added up faster than anyone anticipated. We sat in my parents' living room in West Lynn going over the numbers. Victoria looked close to tears. My mother was stress-eating chocolates from a box on the coffee table. My father kept running calculations on his phone and shaking his head. I should have stayed quiet. Should have let them figure it out. Should have let Victoria choose a venue they could afford or let Brandon's family contribute more or let my parents reallocate their budget. Instead, I heard myself say I could help. The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. I had savings. Not $80,000, but a substantial amount I'd been setting aside for years. Money I'd been planning to use as a down payment on a condo eventually. Money that represented every bonus and tax refund and extra freelance project I'd taken on for the past 6 years. I could cover the venue. As a gift. For my sister's wedding. Because I wanted her to have the day she dreamed of and I could afford to make that happen, and wasn't that what family did for each other? Victoria hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Crying and thanking me and saying I was the best sister in the world. My mother cried too, hugging both of us and saying how beautiful it was that we were so close. My father clapped me on the shoulder and said he was proud of me for being so generous. The transaction felt good in the moment. Like I'd finally done something that mattered. Something that made me essential rather than peripheral. I was giving Victoria her dream wedding. I was solving a problem nobody else could solve. I mattered. I signed the contract with Riverside Estate and Gardens the following week. Put down a $30,000 deposit that cleared out half my savings account. The remaining $50,000 was due 6 weeks before the wedding. I set up a payment plan with my bank, moving money from investments and cutting back on every possible expense to make the number work. 6 weeks before the wedding, I made the final payment. $50,000 transferred in a single transaction that left my savings account with less than $8,000 remaining. 6 years of careful saving. Gone. But Victoria would have her perfect venue and I would be the sister who made it possible. I waited for them to ask how I was doing financially after such a large expense. Waited for someone to check if I needed anything or if the sacrifice had been too much. Waited for acknowledgement that I'd given up my future condo down payment to fund my sister's wedding. Nobody asked. Victoria was too busy with dress fittings and shower planning. My mother was too consumed with coordinating family travel arrangements. My father was too focused on his speech for the reception. I'd solved the venue problem and now everyone could move on to the 1,000 other details that required attention. The bridal shower happened in April at my aunt's house in Lake Oswego. 40 women gathered to celebrate Victoria with champagne and presents and games that involved toilet paper wedding dresses. I'd helped organize it, coordinating with my mother and aunt about food and decorations and the guest list. I gave Victoria a set of expensive cookware from her registry. Le Creuset in the color she'd specifically requested. $700 for pots and pans she'd probably used 3 times before relegating them to cabinet storage. She opened it in front of everyone and smiled politely, thanking me before moving on to the next gift. A heartfelt card from Brandon's mother drew more enthusiasm and tears than my cookware. The bachelorette party was in early May. A weekend trip to Cannon Beach that I'd helped plan and split the cost for. We stayed in a rented beach house, drank too much wine, and played games that were supposed to be fun but mostly made me feel like an outsider watching my sister's actual friends bond over inside jokes I didn't understand. On the second night, after Victoria had gone to bed, I overheard Kristen talking to the other bridesmaids in the kitchen. They didn't know I was on the deck just outside the open window. "I don't know why Victoria's so stressed about Claire," Kristen said. "She's not even in the wedding party. She doesn't have to do anything." One of the other bridesmaids, Lauren, responded in a lower voice I had to strain to hear. "I think Victoria feels guilty about taking so much money from her. Like she has to include her in stuff to make up for it." "It's not like Claire can't afford it," another voice added. "She makes good money. And it's not like she has anything else to spend it on. No husband. No kids. What else is she going to do with her savings?" They laughed. Not meanly, just casually. The way people laugh when they don't think anyone's listening and don't consider that their words might hurt. I stood on that deck in the darkness, listening to my sister's friends discuss me like I was a checkbook with legs, and felt something inside me go very still and very quiet. The rehearsal dinner happened 2 weeks later. I'd assumed I would be included. Assumed that even if I wasn't in the wedding party, I was still immediate family and would obviously be part of the intimate dinner the night before the ceremony. I'd dressed carefully that evening. A navy blue dress that was elegant without trying to compete with the bridesmaids. Simple jewelry. Hair styled but not overdone. I wanted to look like I belonged there. When I arrived at Riverside Estate and Gardens, the venue I had paid $80,000 to secure, the parking lot was already full. I recognized cars belonging to my parents, to Victoria and Brandon, to various aunts and uncles and family friends. The building glowed with warm light. Music drifted across the grounds. I walked up the front steps and through the main entrance. Followed the signs to the reception hall where the rehearsal dinner was being held. Stopped at the entrance when a staff member in a black vest approached me with a polite smile. "Name, please?" "I can show you to your seat." "Claire Donovan." He checked his seating chart and his smile flickered for just a second. "Right this way, please." He led me past the reception hall. Through the kitchen. Down a set of stairs I didn't even know existed. Into a basement that smelled like storage and cleaning supplies. To a folding table in the corner with a single place card. "Here we are," he said, still professionally polite. "Someone will be down shortly to bring you a plate." Then he left. I stood there staring at that table and finally understood with perfect clarity that I had never mattered to any of them. Not as a daughter. Not as a sister. Not as a person. I was a resource. A solution to problems they didn't want to solve themselves. A checkbook that occasionally needed to be placated with surface-level inclusion so it would keep opening. I had paid $80,000 to be seated in a basement. And in that moment, standing alone next to a water heater with my name written in beautiful calligraphy on a card meant to keep me hidden, I decided I was done being invisible. I pulled out my phone and took those pictures. Walked back up the stairs and through the kitchen and out to my car. Drove home to my loft with my hands steady on the wheel and my mind already calculating the exact right moment to pull the trigger. 16 days until the wedding. I had 16 days to watch them celebrate and plan and anticipate. 16 days to let them believe everything was perfect. 16 days to make sure the cancellation would hurt exactly as much as 32 years of being treated like I didn't matter. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Stephanie Park, the event coordinator at Riverside Estate and Gardens. Didn't send it yet. Just saved it in drafts where I could review it and refine it and make sure every word was exactly right. Then I poured another glass of wine and sat on my balcony looking out at the city lights, thinking about justice and consequences and the very specific kind of power that comes from being consistently underestimated by people who should have known better. The morning after the rehearsal dinner, I woke to 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. My mother had called 6 times starting at 7 in the morning. Victoria had sent a barrage of increasingly frantic texts asking where I'd gone and why I'd left without saying goodbye, and was I upset about something because Kristen said I'd seemed off lately. I ignored all of them. Made coffee and sat at my kitchen counter scrolling through the contract with Riverside Estate one more time. The cancellation clause was clear and absolute. 14 days or more before the event meant a 25% refund. Less than 14 days meant no refund and full liability for the contracted amount. Today was exactly 16 days out. I had 48 hours to decide if I wanted to salvage $20,000 or make a point that would cost me everything I'd paid but deliver something far more valuable. My phone rang again. My mother's name flashing across the screen. I let it go to voicemail and listened to her message on speaker while I made breakfast. Claire, honey, we missed you last night at dinner. Victoria said you weren't feeling well. I hope everything's all right. Give me a call when you get this. We have some final details to go over for Saturday, and I want to make sure you know what time to arrive and where you'll be sitting during the ceremony. Talk soon, sweetheart. The casual lie in her voice was almost impressive. We missed you at dinner, as if my absence had been noted and regretted rather than deliberately orchestrated. As if she hadn't personally approved a seating chart that put me in a basement while everyone else celebrated upstairs. I deleted the voicemail and opened my text messages. Read through Victoria's messages with a detachment that would have surprised me a week ago. The first one from last night at 9:15, where did you go? Mom said you weren't feeling well. 9:40, Claire, seriously, are you okay? You're worrying me. 10:30, I know you've been stressed about work stuff. Do you want to get coffee tomorrow and talk? This morning at 7, good morning. Hope you're feeling better. Call me when you're up. 8:15, Claire, come on, don't ghost me. What's going on? 8:45, are you mad about something? Did I do something wrong? The progression from concern to confusion to defensive guilt was textbook Victoria. She'd done nothing wrong in her own mind because she genuinely didn't see me as a full person with feelings that could be hurt. I was more like a piece of furniture that had unexpectedly moved itself and now she couldn't find the remote. I typed a response and deleted it 3 times before settling on something bland and non-committal. Sorry, wasn't feeling great last night. I'm fine now. Lots of work stuff happening. I'll call you later. Her response came within seconds. Okay, good. I was worried. Let's definitely talk soon. Only 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. 16 days to be exact. I looked at the calendar on my wall where I'd marked the wedding date with a star. Saturday, June 14th. The summer wedding Victoria had dreamed about since we were kids, playing bride with sheets draped over our heads. My work phone rang. Nina Rodriguez, my best friend since our freshman year at University of Oregon. We'd met in an introduction to marketing class and bonded over our shared hatred of group projects and love of true crime podcasts. She'd been the maid of honor at my almost wedding 5 years ago when I'd been briefly engaged to a man named Connor who'd seemed perfect until I discovered he'd been planning to quit his job and live off my salary while he pursued his dream of becoming a professional poker player. Nina had helped me cancel that wedding. Held my hand while I made the calls and sent the emails and absorbed the embarrassment of admitting I'd made a terrible mistake. She'd never once said I told you so, even though she'd had reservations about Connor from the start. Claire, what the hell happened last night? Her voice was sharp with concern the moment I answered. What do you mean? Don't play dumb. I saw you leave. I was going to follow you, but Victoria cornered me asking if I knew where you went. Where were you during dinner? I hesitated. Nina had been seated upstairs with the other guests. She wouldn't have known about the basement table unless someone told her. They put my table in the basement. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, what? The rehearsal dinner. My seat was in the basement. Folding table next to the water heater. They were all upstairs and I was supposed to eat alone in the basement. Nina's voice went very quiet. You're joking. I have pictures. Send them to me right now. I forwarded the photos I'd taken. Heard her sharp intake of breath as she looked at them. Claire, this is insane. Who did this? Was it Victoria? I don't know. Could have been Victoria. Could have been my mother. Could have been Stephanie, the event coordinator, following instructions from someone. Does it matter? Yes, it fucking matters, because this is deliberate humiliation and you paid for that venue. I know. So what are you going to do about it? I stared out my window at the city starting to wake up. Sunday morning traffic building on the streets below. People heading to brunch and farmers markets and all the normal activities of people who hadn't just discovered their family considered them basement worthy. I'm thinking about canceling the venue. Nina was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. Walk me through that. What does canceling look like? If I cancel today, I get $20,000 back and they have 16 days to find a new venue. If I wait 2 more days until we're inside the 14-day window, I get nothing back, but they also can't find anywhere else on such short notice. Everything collapses. And you've already paid the full $80,000? 6 weeks ago. Jesus, Claire. I know. No, I don't think you do. $80,000. That's your entire savings. Most of it. Not all. How much do you have left? About $8,000. So you gave up your condo down payment to pay for a wedding where they seated you in a basement. When you say it like that, it sounds bad. It is bad. It's horrific. But canceling with no refund means you lose everything and they still got the rehearsal dinner out of it. At least if you cancel today, you get some money back. I thought about that. $20,000 would rebuild my savings slightly. Give me a buffer. Let me feel less financially devastated by this whole nightmare. But it would also let them find another venue. Let the wedding happen. Let Victoria walk down an aisle somewhere else and marry Brandon and have her perfect day and never face a single real consequence for treating me like I was disposable. If I wait 2 more days, I said slowly, they can't recover. Too late to book anywhere decent. Too late to notify all the guests of a location change. Too late to do anything except cancel or have a disaster wedding in someone's backyard. Nina sighed. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I need you to think about whether the satisfaction of ruining her wedding is worth losing $60,000. It's not about satisfaction. It's about them learning that I'm not a resource they can exploit and humiliate without consequences. Okay. Then I support whatever you decide. But Claire? Yeah? Document everything. Every text, every call, every conversation. If you're going to burn this bridge, make sure you have proof of why. I promised her I would. We hung up and I spent the rest of Sunday in my apartment avoiding my family's increasingly urgent attempts to contact me. By evening my mother had called 11 more times. Victoria had sent 30 additional texts ranging from concerned to annoyed to openly frustrated. The last one came at 9:30 that night. Claire, I don't know what's going on with you, but you're being really selfish right now. I'm getting married in 2 weeks and you're making this about you. Can you please just tell me what I did wrong so we can fix it? I stared at that message for a long time. The complete lack of self-awareness was almost beautiful in its purity. She genuinely could not conceive of what she might have done wrong. The basement seating hadn't even registered as something that might hurt me because in her mind I didn't have feelings that mattered enough to consider. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the email I'd drafted to Stephanie Park at Riverside Estate. Read it through one more time, making small edits. Dear Stephanie, I am writing to cancel the venue reservation for the Donovan Hayes wedding scheduled for June 14th. This cancellation is effective immediately. As per the contract terms, I understand this falls within the 14 to 30-day window and I am entitled to a 25% refund of the total paid amount of $80,000. Please process the refund of $20,000 to the original payment method within 30 business days as specified in our agreement. I appreciate your assistance with this matter and apologize for any inconvenience. Sincerely, Claire Donovan. My cursor hovered over the send button. This was the safe choice. The reasonable choice. Cancel now, get some money back, let them scramble but still potentially save the wedding. Be the bigger person. Take the financial hit but maintain the moral high ground. I saved the email again without sending it. Monday morning I called in sick to work. Told my boss I had a stomach bug and needed to rest. Spent the day in my apartment drinking coffee and reading through years of text messages between me and my family. A digital archive of every time I'd been overlooked or dismissed or taken for granted. There was the thread from 3 years ago when I'd gotten my promotion to senior coordinator. I'd texted the family group chat excitedly. My mother's response had been "That's wonderful honey," followed immediately by a longer message about Victoria getting a new client for her event planning company. My father had sent a thumbs up emoji. Victoria had responded with congrats. And then launched into a story about a bridezilla she was dealing with. The conversation had moved on within 5 minutes and never circled back to my achievement. There was the thread from 2 years ago when I'd asked if anyone wanted to come to a gallery opening featuring my friend's photography. I'd helped with the marketing and was proud of the turnout we generated. My mother said she and Dad had plans but maybe next time. Victoria said she was busy but the photos looked cool based on the Instagram post I'd shared. Nobody came. Nobody rescheduled. Nobody asked how it went. There was the thread from last Christmas when I'd mentioned feeling burnt out from work and thinking about taking a vacation. My mother's response was "Maybe you're working too hard, honey. You should learn to relax more." Victoria had sent a gif of someone lying on a beach with the caption "self-care." Neither of them had asked where I wanted to go or offered to join me or suggested we plan a sister's trip. Just vague encouragement to relax followed by radio silence. The pattern was consistent and undeniable. Every conversation about me lasted less than 3 exchanges before pivoting to Victoria or something else entirely. Every achievement I shared was met with minimal acknowledgement. Every time I needed support or connection or basic family interest, I was given the emotional equivalent of a pat on the head and a suggestion to handle it myself. But when Victoria needed something, the family mobilized instantly. When she'd been stressed about a work deadline, my mother had driven across town to bring her dinner and keep her company. When she'd had a bad breakup before Brandon, my father had taken her to lunch every weekend for a month. When she'd needed help moving apartments, they'd both cleared their schedules and recruited cousins and made it a whole family event. I'd moved into my Pearl District loft by myself. Rented a truck, packed everything alone, hauled boxes up 3 flights of stairs because the building elevator was broken that day. My family had all been busy with various commitments. Victoria had sent a text saying good luck with the move, with a flexed arm emoji. Monday evening my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. I saw her through the peephole, standing in the hallway in her casual expensive clothes, shifting her weight from foot to foot in that way she did when she was uncomfortable but determined. I considered not answering. But curiosity won. She looked relieved when I opened the door. "Claire, sweetheart. Can I come in?" I stepped aside and let her enter. She looked around my loft the way she always did when she visited, with a faint expression of concern that she probably thought she was hiding. The space was too sparse for her taste. Too modern. Not enough furniture or decoration or warmth. She'd offered multiple times to help me make it more homey, by which she meant more like the cluttered comfortable house where I'd grown up and Victoria still felt perfectly at home. "This is a nice surprise," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Well, you haven't been answering your phone and Victoria is worried sick." "We all are." I gestured to the sofa and we both sat. She perched on the edge like she might need to leave quickly. "I've just been busy with work," I said. She nodded, clearly not believing me. "Is everything okay? You seemed upset after the rehearsal dinner." I waited to see if she'd mention the basement. If she'd acknowledge what had happened. If she'd offer any explanation or apology. "I wasn't feeling well," I said, repeating the lie she'd told Victoria. "Victoria said you left without saying goodbye to anyone." Like I said, I wasn't feeling well. My mother's hands twisted in her lap. She wore 3 rings on her right hand, including the anniversary band my father had given her last year. Diamond and sapphire. Expensive and tasteful. Claire, if something's bothering you, you need to tell us. We can't read your mind. The audacity of that statement was stunning. They couldn't read my mind, but they'd somehow decided I should eat dinner alone in a basement while everyone else celebrated upstairs. Where was my seat supposed to be? I asked quietly. She blinked. What? At the rehearsal dinner. Where was I supposed to sit? You had a table, honey. I saw the seating chart myself. In the basement. Her face did something complicated. A flicker of guilt quickly smoothed into confusion. That was just because we ran out of space upstairs. The venue has capacity limits, and with Brandon's family and all the out-of-town guests, we had to get creative with seating arrangements. You seated me in the basement next to a water heater while everyone else was upstairs at the actual dinner. It wasn't ideal, but we thought you'd understand. You're family. You're flexible. We needed those upstairs seats for guests who traveled far and wouldn't understand if they weren't included in the main celebration. I stared at her. Processed what she was actually saying. That out-of-town guests, some of whom I'd never met, were more important than me. That my understanding and flexibility were assumed and expected. That being family meant accepting whatever scraps of inclusion they decided to offer. Did you ask Victoria if this was okay? Putting me in the basement? My mother's expression shifted into defensiveness. Victoria has been under enormous stress planning this wedding. We've all been trying to make things easier for her, not harder. She trusted us to handle the details. So it was your decision. It was a practical decision based on space constraints. You paid $80,000 for that venue, Mom. I paid $80,000. There was plenty of space. You chose to put me in the basement. Her hands stopped twisting. She looked at me with something I'd never quite seen before. Not guilt. Not regret. Something closer to irritation that I was making this difficult. Claire, you're being overly sensitive about this. It was just a seating arrangement. Nobody meant anything by it. If it didn't mean anything, why wasn't Victoria in the basement? Why wasn't Kristen? Why wasn't literally anyone else you actually care about? That's not fair. Isn't it? We sat in silence. The air in my loft felt heavy and thick. Outside my windows, the city continued its evening rhythm. People coming home from work. Going out to dinner. Living lives that didn't include being called overly sensitive for objecting to being hidden in a basement. I think you should leave, I said quietly. My mother stood up, gathering her purse. Her face had closed off into that expression she used when she decided a conversation was over and nothing productive would come from continuing it. I hope you'll reconsider your attitude before the wedding, she said. Victoria deserves to have her sister there without all this drama. She left without saying goodbye. I heard her footsteps in the hallway, the elevator doors opening and closing, the building settling back into quiet. I sat on my sofa until the sun went down and the city lights came on. Thought about that word. Drama. As if my objection to being treated like basement storage was dramatic. As if 32 years of being the afterthought was me being oversensitive. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Mom said you're upset about the seating at rehearsal. I'm sorry you felt left out, but it really wasn't personal. Can we please just move past this? I need you at my wedding. Need. Not want. Need. Because despite everything, despite the basement and the dismissal and the complete lack of consideration, she still needed me there to play my role as the supportive older sister who'd paid for everything and asked for nothing in return. I opened my laptop and pulled up the cancellation email. Changed the date to reflect tomorrow, Tuesday. 2 days from now would put us at 14 days exactly. Inside the no refund window. I saved it again. Set a reminder on my phone for Tuesday morning at 9. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I opened a new document and started writing down every single instance of favoritism I could remember. Every unequal treatment. Every time my achievements had been minimized while Victoria's had been celebrated. Every financial disparity. Every emotional dismissal. The list grew longer as I typed. Page after page of specific examples with dates and dollar amounts and direct quotes I could remember. The evidence of a pattern so consistent it couldn't be denied or explained away as sensitivity or misunderstanding. When I finally stopped typing, it was past midnight and I had 17 pages of documentation. 32 years of being the daughter who mattered less, spelled out in brutal detail. I saved the document and titled it simply, Why? Because when they asked, and they would ask, I wanted to be able to show them exactly why I'd decided that losing $60,000 was worth it if it meant they finally understood there were consequences for treating people like they were disposable. Tuesday morning arrived with fog rolling in from the river. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen counter watching the reminder notification on my phone count down. 9 o'clock came and went. 9:15. 9:30. At 9:45 I opened my email and pulled up the message to Stephanie Park. Read it one final time. My hand hovered over the send button. This was it. The point of no return. Once I sent this email, everything would change. The wedding would be cancelled. Victoria would be devastated. My parents would be furious. The entire extended family would hear about it and take sides and judge me for being cruel and selfish and petty. I would lose $60,000. My entire savings except for the emergency fund I'd kept separate. Years of work and sacrifice and careful planning gone in a single email. But I would also finally, definitively, prove that I was not a doormat. That I had boundaries they couldn't cross without consequence. That my money and my generosity and my understanding had limits and they'd found them. I clicked send. The email disappeared from my drafts and appeared in my sent folder. Time stamped 9:47 a.m. Done. I sat very still, waiting to feel something. Regret or satisfaction or panic or relief. Instead I felt calm. Eerily, perfectly calm. Like I'd been holding my breath for 32 years and had finally exhaled. My phone rang within 20 minutes. Stephanie Park from Riverside Estate. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. Ms. Donovan, this is Stephanie Park calling regarding your cancellation email. I've received your request and I need to confirm some details with you. Please give me a call back at your earliest convenience. Thank you. Professional. Neutral. She was probably going through the contract right now, calculating the refund, processing the paperwork. Wondering what had happened to cause a cancellation this close to the event date. I didn't call her back. The email had been clear. The contract was clear. There was nothing to discuss. 30 minutes later my phone rang again. My mother. I didn't answer. Then Victoria. Then my father. Then my mother again. The calls came in waves, one after another, each one going to voicemail. I turned off my phone and went for a walk. The Pearl District was quiet on Tuesday morning. Most people were already at work, the streets emptied of the usual rush hour chaos. I walked without destination, just moving through the neighborhoods I'd come to know over the past 3 years of living here. Past the coffee shops where I'd spent weekend mornings reading. Past the galleries where I'd browsed art I couldn't afford. Past the restaurants where I'd eaten alone more often than not because my family was always too busy to meet up. My phone was off in my pocket but I could feel it there, a weight that seemed heavier than its actual mass. I knew what was happening right now. Stephanie had probably called Victoria to inform her of the cancellation. Victoria had probably called my mother in hysterics. My mother had probably called my father. The three of them were probably sitting somewhere right now trying to figure out what had gone wrong and how to fix it. I walked for 2 hours before heading back to my loft. Climbed the 3 flights of stairs slowly, listening to the sounds of the building around me. Someone's television playing too loud. A dog barking. Normal life continuing while mine fractured into before and after. When I turned my phone back on, the screen lit up with notifications that kept coming, a cascade of digital panic that took nearly a minute to fully load. 63 missed calls. 117 text messages. 14 voicemails. The numbers were almost absurd. I started with the voicemails, listening to them in chronological order. The first was from Stephanie at 10:15. Ms. Donovan, I've processed your cancellation request. Per the contract terms, since this falls within the 14 to 30-day window, you're entitled to a 25% refund. However, I noticed the date on your email shows today, which is exactly 14 days from the event. I need to verify the timestamp to ensure we're calculating the refund correctly. Please call me back. The second was from Victoria at 10:20, her voice high and panicked. Claire, what the fuck did you do? Stephanie just called me saying you canceled the venue. Tell me this is a mistake. Tell me you didn't actually do this. Call me back right now. My mother at 10:30, trying to sound calm and failing. Claire, sweetheart, there seems to be some confusion about the venue. Stephanie called Victoria very upset and we need to sort this out immediately. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Please call me as soon as you get this. Victoria again at 10:45, crying now. How could you do this to me? 2 weeks before my wedding? What is wrong with you? Everyone is going to know you did this. Everyone is going to know you're the reason my wedding is ruined. I will never forgive you for this. Never. My father at 11, his voice tight with controlled anger. Claire, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this behavior is completely unacceptable. You need to call the venue immediately and fix this. Whatever issues you're having with your sister can be addressed after the wedding. This is not the time for whatever point you think you're making. The voicemails continued in that pattern. Pleading, anger, confusion, threats. My mother's voice getting increasingly desperate. Victoria's getting increasingly vicious. My father's getting increasingly cold. The final voicemail was from Uncle Thomas, my father's younger brother. He'd always been the family member who saw things clearly, who called out dysfunction when everyone else pretended it didn't exist. I hadn't expected to hear from him. Claire, it's your Uncle Thomas. I heard about the venue situation. I don't know the full story, but I can guess some of it. Your aunt and I have watched the way your parents treat you versus Victoria for years, and we've bitten our tongues because it wasn't our place. But if you've finally decided to draw a line, I want you to know I support you. Whatever you need, call me. And don't let them bully you into backing down if you've made a decision you believe in. I saved that voicemail and deleted the others. The text messages were a wasteland of desperation and rage. Victoria had sent 70 messages alone, starting with shock and disbelief and escalating into personal attacks that would have hurt if I hadn't already processed the reality of our relationship. You're jealous because I'm getting married and you're alone. You've always resented me for being happy. Mom and Dad are devastated. You've broken their hearts. Everyone knows what you did and everyone thinks you're horrible. I hope you're happy ruining the most important day of my life. You're dead to me. Completely dead. My mother's messages tried a different approach, cycling between guilt and bargaining. Please, Claire, we can talk about whatever is bothering you, but not like this. Think about Victoria. Think about all the guests who have made plans. Think about Brandon's family. If this is about money, we'll figure out a way to pay you back. Just please fix this. I'm begging you as your mother. Don't do this to your sister. My father's messages were brief and threatening. Fix this immediately. You have until end of business today to resolve this, or there will be serious consequences. I've contacted a lawyer about your liability for damages caused by this stunt. This is theft and we will pursue legal action. I read through all of them with a strange detachment. These people were my family. I'd known them my entire life. Shared holidays and vacations and ordinary Tuesday dinners. And yet reading their messages now felt like reading correspondence from strangers who'd severely overestimated their importance in my life. There were also messages from people I barely knew. Cousins I saw once a year at Christmas. Family friends who'd never bothered to learn what I did for a living. All of them weighing in with opinions about my character and choices. The family group chat, which usually consisted of my parents sharing photos and Victoria posting updates about her life, had exploded into chaos. 47 messages debating what I'd done and why and whether I was having some kind of mental breakdown. Aunt Marie had written, I always knew Claire had issues, but this is beyond anything I could have imagined. Cousin Jennifer added, maybe she's jealous? She's been single for a while. My mother's sister had contributed, this is what happens when you don't prioritize family values. Uncle Thomas was the only dissenting voice. Maybe we should hear her side before rushing to judgment. There are always two sides to every story. He'd been immediately shut down by my mother. This isn't about sides, Thomas. This is about Claire deliberately sabotaging her sister's wedding. I left all the messages on read and opened my laptop. Checked my bank account to confirm the transaction. The $80,000 payment to Riverside Estate was still showing as processed. No refund had been issued yet. According to the timestamp on my cancellation email, it had been sent at 9:47, which meant Stephanie was probably still trying to determine if it fell within the 14-day window or just outside it. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday, June 14th. Today was Tuesday, May 31st. 14 days exactly. I pulled up the contract and read the fine print again. Cancellations made 14 to 30 days before the event receive a 25% refund. Cancellations made less than 14 days before the event receive no refund. The question was whether 14 days exactly counted as within the 14 to 30-day window or less than 14 days. The contract didn't specify and I hadn't thought to ask when I'd signed it. My phone rang again. Nina. I answered. Please tell me you didn't actually cancel the venue. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the underlying concern. I canceled the venue. Holy shit, Claire. I sent the email this morning at 9:47. Exactly 14 days out. She was quiet for a moment. What happened? Did something else occur, or did you just decide to pull the trigger? My mother came over last night. Told me I was being overly sensitive about the basement seating. Said it was just a practical decision based on space constraints and I should get over it for Victoria's sake. Jesus. She also said Victoria deserves to have her sister there without all this drama. Drama being me objecting to being treated like I don't matter. So you decided they needed a bigger lesson. I decided I was done teaching them the same lesson over and over and having them fail to learn it. This time the lesson comes with consequences they can't ignore or explain away. Nina sighed. Okay. I'm with you. But you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. Like really ugly. They're going to come at you hard. They already are. 63 missed calls. 100+ texts. Threats of legal action from my father. Can they actually sue you? I don't know. Probably not successfully. I paid for the venue. It's my money. I have the right to cancel. But they might try anyway just to punish me. You need a lawyer. I know. I have someone. Marcus Chen. He handles family law and contract disputes. Want me to make an introduction? Please. I'll text you his info. In the meantime, don't respond to any of their messages. Don't answer calls. Don't engage at all until you've talked to Marcus and figured out your legal standing. Already planning on it. And Claire? I know this is hard, but I'm proud of you. You've let them walk over you for years. It's about time you stood up. We hung up and I spent the rest of Tuesday afternoon doing exactly what Nina had advised. Not responding. Not engaging. Just documenting everything. Screenshots of every text message, every voicemail transcription, every post in the family group chat. I created a folder on my laptop and organized it all chronologically with notes about context. By evening the messages had taken on a desperate quality. My mother had sent 15 messages in a row without waiting for responses, each one more pleading than the last. Claire, please just talk to us. We can work this out. I know you're upset, but this isn't the way to handle it. Think about all the people who will be affected. Victoria is having a panic attack. She can't breathe. The doctor had to prescribe her something to calm down. You're hurting so many people with this decision. Please, sweetheart. Please fix this. Victoria had switched tactics from rage to manipulation. I'm sorry if we hurt your feelings. I didn't realize the seating thing would upset you so much. Can we please talk about this like adults? I love you and I don't want to lose my sister over a misunderstanding. Mom and Dad are willing to apologize. We all are. Just please undo the cancellation. The apologies were hollow and transactional. Not sorry for what they'd done, but sorry I'd reacted to it. Not recognition of a pattern, but dismissal of a single incident as a misunderstanding. They still didn't get it, and I was increasingly certain they never would. Wednesday morning I woke to find my phone had been mercifully quiet overnight. Only 3 new messages, all from my mother, all sent around 2 in the morning. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about what I could have done differently. Please give me a chance to make this right. I love you, Claire. Even if you don't believe that right now. I forwarded the messages to Nina without comment and got ready for work. I'd already missed Monday and Tuesday. Couldn't afford to miss more without raising questions from my boss that I wasn't ready to answer. The marketing firm where I worked occupied the 10th floor of a building in downtown Portland. I'd been there for 7 years, working my way up from entry-level coordinator to my current position, managing 3 junior staff members and handling major client accounts. My colleagues knew I had a sister getting married soon, but I'd kept the details vague. Nobody knew about the venue payment or the family dynamics or the basement incident. I made it through the morning on autopilot. Attended a client meeting. Reviewed campaign analytics. Approved social media content for a product launch. Ate lunch at my desk while scrolling through emails that had nothing to do with my imploding family. At 2:30 my desk phone rang. The receptionist. Claire, there's someone here to see you. Says she's your mother. My stomach dropped. Tell her I'm in a meeting. She says it's an emergency. She's very insistent. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Tell her I'll be down in 5 minutes. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, giving myself time to prepare. Found my mother in the lobby looking out of place in her expensive casual wear among the sleek modern furniture and startup company vibe of the building. She turned when she heard me approach. Her eyes were red and swollen. She'd been crying, probably for hours based on how puffy her face looked. Claire, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. I'm at work, Mom. You can't just show up here. I didn't know what else to do. You won't answer your phone. You won't respond to messages. We need to talk about this. I glanced at the receptionist, who was trying very hard to look like she wasn't listening. There's a coffee shop across the street. 5 minutes. She nodded eagerly and I led her outside and across the street to a small cafe that was mostly empty in the mid-afternoon lull. We ordered nothing and sat at a table in the back corner. Stephanie called again this morning, my mother said without preamble. She confirmed that your cancellation falls just inside the 14-day window by a matter of hours. You're getting the 25% refund. $20,000. Which means we're out $60,000 and have no venue. That's correct. How could you do this? I looked at her directly. How could you put me in a basement? She flinched. It wasn't personal. Then what was it? It was logistics. Space planning. We had to make difficult decisions about seating and we thought you'd be understanding. You thought I'd be understanding about being hidden away while everyone else celebrated upstairs. You thought I'd be fine with it because I'm always fine with everything. I'm the easy one. The flexible one. The one who doesn't need consideration. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time you prioritized me the way you prioritize Victoria? She opened her mouth and closed it. Couldn't answer because we both knew the truth. I paid $80,000 for that venue, I continued quietly. My entire savings. Money I'd been planning to use for a condo down payment. I gave up my future to pay for Victoria's wedding and you thanked me by seating me in a basement like I was an embarrassment you needed to hide. We never asked you to pay for the venue. That was your choice. You're right. It was my choice. Just like canceling was my choice. And just like you have to live with your choices about how you've treated me for 32 years, I have to live with mine. My mother's hands shook as she reached across the table toward me. Claire, please. We can fix this. We can find another venue. But we need the money. The $20,000 you're getting back won't be enough. Can you help us? Can you loan us the difference? The audacity of the question was almost beautiful. She'd come here to ask me for more money after everything that had happened. After the basement. After the dismissals. After a lifetime of treating me like I was less important than my sister. No. Just like that? No. I have $8,000 left in my savings, Mom. That's it. Everything else went to the venue I just canceled. I don't have money to give you. But you'll get $20,000 back. Which I'll use to rebuild my emergency fund that I depleted paying for a wedding where I apparently wasn't worth a seat at the actual dinner. She started crying then. Real tears that streaked her makeup and made her look older than I'd ever seen her. Please don't do this. Victoria is falling apart. She can't eat. She can't sleep. The doctor prescribed anxiety medication. She's talking about calling off the wedding entirely. Then maybe she should. You don't mean that. I don't know what I mean anymore. All I know is that for my entire life, I've been expected to sacrifice and accommodate and understand while Victoria gets everything she wants without question. And I'm done. If you're angry, be angry at us. Your father and me. Don't punish Victoria for how we raised you. You raised us, I corrected. You raised both of us. You taught her that she deserves everything and taught me that I deserve nothing. Those were your choices. These are the consequences. My mother stood up, grabbing her purse with shaking hands. I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the daughter you created when you decided one of us mattered more than the other. I'm just finally acting like it. She left without another word. I watched her walk across the street and get into her car and drive away. Then I sat in that coffee shop for 20 minutes staring at nothing until my hands stopped shaking enough to go back to work. That evening I met with Marcus Chin, the attorney Nina had recommended. His office was in a modern building near the waterfront, all glass and steel and expensive views. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes and a direct manner that put me at ease immediately. I walked him through everything. The lifetime of favoritism. The venue payment. The basement seating. The cancellation. The threats of legal action from my father. I showed him my documentation. The contract with Riverside Estate. The text messages. The family group chat posts. The 17-page document I'd written detailing years of unequal treatment. He read through it all carefully, making notes on a legal pad. Your father mentioned suing you, he said finally. Do you know on what grounds? He said something about liability for damages and theft. Marcus shook his head. He has no case. You paid for the venue with your own money. It was your contract with Riverside Estate, not theirs. You have the absolute right to cancel. The fact that you were doing it as a gift to your sister doesn't change the legal reality that the venue is yours to cancel. What if they argue I promised them the venue? Made some kind of verbal agreement? Verbal agreements about real estate transactions or services over a certain dollar amount need to be in writing to be enforceable. Statute of frauds. Even if you'd promised them the venue verbally, they couldn't hold you to it. And from your documentation, you didn't promise them anything. Wednesday morning I woke to find my phone had been mercifully quiet overnight. Only 3 new messages, all from my mother, all sent around 2 in the morning. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about what I could have done differently. Please give me a chance to make this right. I love you, Claire. Even if you don't believe that right now. I forwarded the messages to Nina without comment and got ready for work. I'd already missed Monday and Tuesday. Couldn't afford to miss more without raising questions from my boss that I wasn't ready to answer. The marketing firm where I worked occupied the 10th floor of a building in downtown Portland. I'd been there for 7 years, working my way up from entry-level coordinator to my current position, managing 3 junior staff members and handling major client accounts. My colleagues knew I had a sister getting married soon, but I'd kept the details vague. Nobody knew about the venue payment or the family dynamics or the basement incident. I made it through the morning on autopilot. Attended a client meeting. Reviewed campaign analytics. Approved social media content for a product launch. Ate lunch at my desk while scrolling through emails that had nothing to do with my imploding family. At 2:30 my desk phone rang. The receptionist. "Claire, there's someone here to see you. Says she's your mother." My stomach dropped. "Tell her I'm in a meeting. She says it's an emergency. She's very insistent." I closed my eyes and counted to 10. "Tell her I'll be down in 5 minutes." I took the stairs instead of the elevator, giving myself time to prepare. Found my mother in the lobby looking out of place in her expensive casual wear among the sleek modern furniture and startup company vibe of the building. She turned when she heard me approach. Her eyes were red and swollen. She'd been crying, probably for hours based on how puffy her face looked. "Claire, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. I'm at work, Mom. You can't just show up here." I didn't know what else to do. "You won't answer your phone. You won't respond to messages. We need to talk about this." I glanced at the receptionist, who was trying very hard to look like she wasn't listening. "There's a coffee shop across the street. 5 minutes." She nodded eagerly and I led her outside and across the street to a small cafe that was mostly empty in the mid-afternoon lull. We ordered nothing and sat at a table in the back corner. "Stephanie called again this morning," my mother said without preamble. "She confirmed that your cancellation falls just inside the 14-day window by a matter of hours. You're getting the 25% refund. $20,000. Which means we're out $60,000 and have no venue." "That's correct. How could you do this?" I looked at her directly. "How could you put me in a basement?" She flinched. "It wasn't personal." "Then what was it?" "It was logistics. Space planning. We had to make difficult decisions about seating and we thought you'd be understanding. You thought I'd be understanding about being hidden away while everyone else celebrated upstairs. You thought I'd be fine with it because I'm always fine with everything. I'm the easy one. The flexible one. The one who doesn't need consideration. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time you prioritized me the way you prioritize Victoria?" She opened her mouth and closed it. Couldn't answer because we both knew the truth. "I paid $80,000 for that venue," I continued quietly. "My entire savings. Money I'd been planning to use for a condo down payment. I gave up my future to pay for Victoria's wedding and you thanked me by seating me in a basement like I was an embarrassment you needed to hide. We never asked you to pay for the venue. That was your choice." "You're right. It was my choice. Just like canceling was my choice. And just like you have to live with your choices about how you've treated me for 32 years, I have to live with mine." My mother's hands shook as she reached across the table toward me. "Claire, please. We can fix this. We can find another venue. But we need the money. The $20,000 you're getting back won't be enough. Can you help us? Can you loan us the difference?" The audacity of the question was almost beautiful. She'd come here to ask me for more money after everything that had happened. After the basement. After the dismissals. After a lifetime of treating me like I was less important than my sister. No. Just like that? No. I have $8,000 left in my savings, Mom. That's it. Everything else went to the venue I just canceled. I don't have money to give you. But you'll get $20,000 back. Which I'll use to rebuild my emergency fund that I depleted paying for a wedding where I apparently wasn't worth a seat at the actual dinner. She started crying then. Real tears that streaked her makeup and made her look older than I'd ever seen her. Please don't do this. Victoria is falling apart. She can't eat. She can't sleep. The doctor prescribed anxiety medication. She's talking about calling off the wedding entirely. Then maybe she should. You don't mean that. I don't know what I mean anymore. All I know is that for my entire life, I've been expected to sacrifice and accommodate and understand while Victoria gets everything she wants without question. And I'm done. If you're angry, be angry at us. Your father and me. Don't punish Victoria for how we raised you. You raised us, I corrected. You raised both of us. You taught her that she deserves everything and taught me that I deserve nothing. Those were your choices. These are the consequences. My mother stood up, grabbing her purse with shaking hands. I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the daughter you created when you decided one of us mattered more than the other. I'm just finally acting like it. She left without another word. I watched her walk across the street and get into her car and drive away. Then I sat in that coffee shop for 20 minutes staring at nothing until my hands stopped shaking enough to go back to work. That evening I met with Marcus Chen, the attorney Nina had recommended. His office was in a modern building near the waterfront, all glass and steel and expensive views. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes and a direct manner that put me at ease immediately. I walked him through everything. The lifetime of favoritism. The venue payment. The basement seating. The cancellation. The threats of legal action from my father. I showed him my documentation. The contract with Riverside Estate. The text messages. The family group chat posts. The 17-page document I'd written detailing years of unequal treatment. He read through it all carefully, making notes on a legal pad. Your father mentioned suing you, he said finally. Do you know on what grounds? He said something about liability for damages and theft. Marcus shook his head. He has no case. You paid for the venue with your own money. It was your contract with Riverside Estate, not theirs. You have the absolute right to cancel. The fact that you were doing it as a gift to your sister doesn't change the legal reality that the venue is yours to cancel. What if they argue I promised them the venue? Made some kind of verbal agreement? Verbal agreements about real estate transactions or services over a certain dollar amount need to be in writing to be enforceable. Statute of frauds. Even if you'd promised them the venue verbally, they couldn't hold you to it. And from your documentation, you didn't promise them anything. For the first time in a week, my phone wasn't vibrating with family drama. The quiet felt suspicious. I made coffee and checked social media. Victoria had posted again late last night. A photo of her and Brandon looking somber and brave. The caption read, "Thank you all for your support during this heartbreaking time. We've decided to postpone rather than cancel. Love will find a way. New date to be announced soon." Postpone. Not cancel. She was still holding on to the fantasy that this could be salvaged. That somehow she'd find another venue and convince me to pay for it or guilt someone else into covering the cost. The delusion was almost impressive. The comments were full of encouragement. So happy you're not giving up. True love conquers all. Everything happens for a reason. No one asked the obvious questions. How would they afford a new venue? Who had sabotaged the original one? Why was this happening to such a lovely couple? Sunday arrived with continued silence from my immediate family, but my phone started buzzing at noon with calls from extended relatives. Aunt Marie. Cousin Jennifer. My mother's college roommate who I'd met exactly twice in my life. I ignored them all. At 2 o'clock Uncle Thomas texted me a photo. The intervention was happening in my parents' living room. 15 people gathered on couches and chairs arranged in a circle. My mother crying. My father looking grim. Victoria absent, probably too devastated to attend. They're taking turns sharing stories about how wonderful Victoria is and how out of character your actions are, Thomas wrote. Aunt Marie just said you must be having some kind of breakdown. Cousin Jennifer suggested you're jealous. Your dad's friend from church thinks you need prayer and counseling. I texted back. Thanks for being my spy. Someone needs to witness this circus. They're planning to show up at your apartment after this if you don't respond to their calls. I'm not home. Smart girl. I'd gone to Nina's house that morning anticipating exactly this scenario. We spent the afternoon watching movies and pointedly not discussing my family until my phone buzzed with a notification that someone was at my building's front door. I pulled up the security camera app. My mother and Aunt Marie stood in the rain looking up at the camera. Nina peered over my shoulder. Are you going to let them in? Absolutely not. They rang the bell 4 more times before finally leaving. That evening my father sent a single text. This isn't over. We will find a way to make this right and you will be held accountable for the damage you've caused. I forwarded it to Marcus, who responded within minutes. Document everything. This could constitute harassment. The week that should have been Victoria's wedding week passed in strange calm. I went to work. Came home. Lived my life. My family had gone quiet, probably regrouping and strategizing their next move. On what would have been the wedding day, I woke up and did something I'd been planning all week. I drove to the coast. Spent the day walking on empty beaches watching waves crash against rocks. Ate lunch at a small cafe overlooking the ocean. Breathed air that tasted like salt and freedom. My phone stayed silent until evening when Nina texted. Victoria posted that she and Brandon went to the courthouse. Got married with just his parents there. She's acting like it was romantic and spontaneous, but the photos look sad. I pulled up Instagram. Sure enough, Victoria in a simple white dress, Brandon in a suit, standing on courthouse steps trying to smile like this was what they'd wanted all along. The caption, sometimes the best moments are the unplanned ones. Husband and wife. The comments were supportive, but I could read between the lines. Everyone knew this wasn't the plan. Everyone knew something had gone terribly wrong. And even if they didn't know my name, they knew someone had caused this. I closed the app and watched the sunset over the Pacific. Felt something settle in my chest that might have been peace or might have been the absence of war. Either way, it felt like breathing. 3 months passed. The refund from Riverside Estate arrived and I tucked it into a new savings account. Started rebuilding what I'd lost. My family maintained their silence and I maintained mine. Uncle Thomas sent occasional updates. Victoria and Brandon had moved into a small apartment. My parents had downsized to a smaller house, their retirement savings depleted from trying to salvage the wedding situation. Victoria wasn't speaking to them either, blaming them for the basement seating that had triggered everything. The family I'd known was fragmenting. Not because of me, but because the dysfunction I'd finally stopped enabling couldn't sustain itself without a willing participant to exploit. I started therapy. Found a woman named Dr. Wright who specialized in family systems and helped me untangle 32 years of conditioning. Learned words for what had been done to me. Parentification. Scapegoating. Triangulation. Golden child syndrome. The patterns had names and I wasn't crazy for seeing them. Nina introduced me to her book club and I found people who became friends without the weight of shared history. Started hiking on weekends. Adopted a cat from the shelter. Built a life that felt authentically mine for the first time. 6 months after the wedding that didn't happen, my mother sent a letter. Actual paper, actual envelope, forwarded through Uncle Thomas because she didn't trust I'd read it if it came directly from her. The letter was 3 pages of careful handwriting. Apologies that felt more real than anything she'd said before. Acknowledgement of the favoritism. Admission that she'd failed me in ways she was only now beginning to understand. No request for reconciliation. No demand that I forgive. Just I'm sorry and I understand if you can't forgive me and I hope someday you find peace. I read it twice and put it in a drawer. Wasn't ready to respond but wasn't ready to throw it away either. A year later I bought a small condo. Not the one I'd originally planned, but a cozy space in Hawthorne that felt like home the moment I walked in. Used the rebuilt savings for the down payment. Signed the papers alone and felt proud rather than lonely. Uncle Thomas came to my housewarming party. So did Nina and my book club and co-workers who'd become genuine friends. We drank wine on my small balcony, and I realized this was what family was supposed to feel like. People who chose to be there. People who saw me and valued me without conditions. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Just wanted to say congratulations on your new place. Uncle Thomas told me. I'm genuinely happy for you. I know I don't have the right to say this, but I'm sorry. For everything. I hope you're doing well. Victoria. I stared at that message for a long time. Felt nothing sharp or painful. Just a distant recognition that we'd been sisters once and weren't anymore, and that was okay. I didn't respond. Some doors close and stay closed, and that's not cruelty. It's just knowing when something can't be fixed and choosing peace over the endless work of trying. The city lights came on as evening fell. My cat curled up beside me. Nina refilled my wine glass. Someone told a story that made everyone laugh. This was my life now. Built from the ashes of what I'd walked away from. Smaller in some ways. Richer in others. Mine. I thought about that basement table sometimes. The moment I'd stood there holding a place card and realized I'd finally found my limit. The quiet decision that had cost me everything and given me myself. Worth it. Every dollar. Every burned bridge. Every difficult conversation and lonely night and moment of doubt. Because the girl who would have sat in that basement and eaten alone and pretended it was fine was gone. And the woman who'd stood up and walked out and canceled the venue and chose herself had taken her place. I raised my glass to her. To me. To the hardest decision I'd ever made and the freedom that came after. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but mine to shape. No more basements. No more being invisible. Just space and light and the sound of people who'd chosen to love me laughing in my home. Finally free. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.